This is a scary movie about a old town called Beaver in Denmark, and which most of the buildings were consumed by a big fire in 1726. Mr. Anderson is the protagonist, and he is a writer, and he decided to write a history about the this town. So he traveled to this place and stayed in a old building called Golden Lion Inn. He stayed in a room 20 near to the room 14 because there wasn't room 13. So he began to investigate about the history about this place in the whole town, but he just found old papers about a bishop of the town who had several houses. One of these leads a man named Mr. Nichols Franken, who the people didn't like him because they said that Mr. Franken was a magician. So one day he disappeared when the people were for him to attack him. In this old building, he stayed in the room 13, and a lot of strange things happened near to him in the room 13. So he decided to talk with the landlord of the hotel, but he didn't believe him. So one day they heard a lot of stranger noises, so the landlord decided to brought two men to broke the door, and in this moment they found a box under the floor. This box has a lot of old papers. Nobody could read it because it was a strange language. Mr. Anderson said that could belong to Mr. Franken, the magician. The ink maybe were blood, was that Anderson said. That's the history about the room 13. The protagonist is Mr. Anderson. He is a writer. He is around 30 years old, and he had a pretty good education, and he came a good family. The problem was a haunted room in a old building called Golden Lion Inn in Viborg, Denmark, where strangers things happen constantly until one day, thanks to Mr. Anderson, who combines to the landlord of this building of these facts, and the landlord brought two men to knock down the wall of the room 13, finding under the floor a box with many old papers, perhaps belong to a magician. Since that day, everything changes. The point of the highest tension was when Mr. Anderson and the landlord heard the stranger noises comes from a room near of them, and the landlord said that must be Mr. Jensen. The poor has been ill, and when suddenly enters Mr. Jensen shouting, "Stop this terrible noise!" Everybody stay petrified for a second, and the landlord goes out to the corridor, and he realized that the noises comes from the room 13. He tries to open the door, but it is locked. I think that this moment was when Mr. Anderson saw a shadow reflected in the wall in the in front building, which belonged to his neighbor of the room 13. So the next day, Mr. Anderson decided to visit his neighbor, but he surprised because he didn't find a door of the room 13 because didn't exist. That was the moment of the most attraction, when I feel that I want to know what follows, and the curiosity increase maybe, and that keep the attention of the writer in the history.